Good evening. For some of you, this hour finds you tired of praying with your lips, while within you whisper, "Why is nothing moving? Why do the words float away and leave me with the same ache, the same unpaid bill, the same troubled child?" For others, this hour comes after many fine books and lively discussions and the agreeable feeling of being spiritual. And yet you wonder, why does my insight not become demonstration? Why do the principles brighten my mind without changing my day? And for still others, you have been hurt. Hurt by churchianity, by rules and penalties, and the superstition of thinking that if only you said the right sentence or joined the right circle, God might be cornered into blessing you. You love God, and yet you flinch at the word blessing, because it has been used to promise what it did not deliver. Now let us be very gentle and very clear. The gift of God is constant. God does not turn on and off like a faucet in the sky. No variation, no shadow of turning. The failure is not there. And here is our contrarian premise, not as an attack on anyone, but as a doorway into freedom. Blessings cannot be inflicted. They are not an external force hurled at you from a distance. They cannot be made to work by being sent harder or believed louder. They do not happen to you as events. They become effective only as they are received, and reception is an inner capacity, a conscious union, a place in you where the point of contact is formed. Therefore, the real question for our work together is this: why do sincere prayers sometimes feel unanswered? Why do good words spoken over us, kind thoughts, hearty benedictions, even hands laid upon us, seem to have no power in lived experience? Why do we say, "I know the truth," and then meet the same fear at midnight? The answer is not to pray longer, shout louder, or gather more people to push with you. The answer is to discover where, in you, the receiving takes place, and how consciousness opens to grace. And so I must say at the outset, to relieve your mind of any burden I might put upon it, there is no new ritual here, no membership, no badge to wear. No one can join this. The only bond we have is a spiritual bond, and that bond forms only within you when your own inner life discovers its source. Not more effort, but truer receptivity. Not a new ceremony, but a new awareness. Not an outer affiliation, but an inward union. If God is omnipresent good, then God's willingness cannot be the variable. Something else is the variable. It is our consciousness, our openness, our union. Tonight we begin to learn that God's giving is not intermittent. Our capacity to receive is the point of change. When that capacity awakens, quietly, simply, you will find that what you have called blessing is not a package sent from afar, but the natural outflow of a life joined at its source. Now, let us look at the hidden assumption that keeps so many earnest seekers waiting at the window, watching the sky, wondering if today the weather of grace will shift in their favor. For some, the thought is, if the blessing wants me, it will find me. If it doesn't, I must be unworthy. For others, it is, if I can gather enough voices, enough hands, enough words, the pressure of them will move the heavens. And for still others, it becomes, if I stand in the right place, at the right hour, under the right teaching, surely the shower of good must fall. But truth is not weather. Grace is not a storm cloud drifting across a sky of chance. God is omnipresent. Therefore, the movement that matters is not a change in God, but a change in our capacity to receive. Here is the governing law, and please mark it within yourself because it will serve you in every department of your life. Blessings cannot be inflicted upon you. By inflicted, I mean this. No matter how loving the intention, no matter how earnest the prayer, no matter how authoritative the form of words, nothing can force its way past your consciousness and set up permanent housekeeping there. You can be surrounded by kindness and remain untouched within. You can be addressed by truth and yet, as the Master said, having ears, hear not, until the ear of the heart opens. The point of contact is missing, and so the outpouring has no inlet. And you know this in the simplest ways. A friend tells you, "You did beautifully," and you smile, but the compliment does not register. It meets a closed gate. Another morning, the inbox is full of opportunity, calls, invitations, doors ajar, and still you say, "Nothing ever happens for me," because the inner door is shut. Still another day, you hear scripture read with music and light, but walk out carrying the same fear, because within, fear remains your authority. The words were fine, the setting lifted, the intention pure. Yet the texture of life did not change. No deeper peace, no clearer guidance, no lift in health or supply. Because grace was treated as a spectacle to be observed, rather than a life to be entered. And so people grow tired. Tired of a philosophy of words, tired of a promise that does not become demonstration. They are not wrong to be tired. People do not want rhetoric. They want reality. They want the felt quiet that dissolves panic at 2 a.m. They want a wisdom that actually directs their steps. They want healing that is not a headline, but a household fact. If God is indeed omnipresent, then the only intelligent question remaining is not, "Where is the blessing?" but, "Where is my point of contact?" Therefore, the diagnosis is this. We have treated grace as an external force to be summoned, and we have postponed our good while waiting for a wind that has never ceased to blow. The change is not to strive, nor to accuse yourself of failure, nor to enlarge the chorus. The change is to locate within the place where contact is made. For the blessing is not absent. The point of contact is what is missing. When that is found, you will discover that nothing needed to be sent harder or believed louder. It needed to be received. Now let us take a picture that your hands could feel if they reached out into a garden. If you can, for a moment, visualize a great tree, roots sunk deep and far, reaching under sidewalks and beyond fences, drawing from rain and darkness and the hidden chemistry of the earth. A trunk steady, lifting, and then the living fan of branches carrying leaves and fruit. Do you see that no branch sends for its life? The root does not receive an order form from a limb. The sap rises because the whole is one life. The law is union. Where there is union, there is natural movement. Up from the unseen, through the trunk, out into the twig, and into the leaf without a committee meeting, without a please, without strain. It is inevitable, not mystical. When the Master said, "I am the vine, ye are the branches," he was not giving us a line of poetry to embroider. He was describing the mechanics of being, the physics of spirit, the way supply appears as fruit. Abide in me, for without me ye can do nothing. Now, if a branch is cut off, you and I know what happens. For a brief hour it may look fine. There is still the sheen of yesterday's sap, some color left. But already, secretly, the drying has begun. Soon the pliancy goes, the leaf curls, the fruit softens and falls. So it is with us when we live on personal strength, on willpower, on the calendar of circumstances. For a time we can act brave on yesterday's inspiration, keep moving on caffeine and applause, spend the reservoir of a past success. But the quiet joy begins to wither. Guidance becomes a guess. Health frays at the edges. Fear becomes our authority at midnight. Dryness is not a punishment. It is the symptom of feeling cut off. Now here's the part that must be very plain. The root system of your being is not in the world of effects. Not in a paycheck, not in a city, not in a congregation, not even in the finest book or the dearest friend. Those are fruits, leaves, shade. The root is God, and the inlet to God is within you. The kingdom of God is within you. Therefore, the place of union is not geographic, not social, not institutional. No address can give it to you. No membership can confer it. No human authority can guarantee it. The point of contact is made where you are, in the very center of your own awareness, when the withinness of God is recognized as the life of your I. And so, if we accept the model the Master gave us, receptivity is not begging the vine to send more sap, nor buying a larger bucket to catch it. Receptivity is the restored connection, conscious union. Abide, and the sap moves. Remain, and the fruit forms. You do not strain into life. You yield into it. Therefore, the change we seek is not to shout to heaven, "More, more," but to quietly return to where union is realized, and let the inevitability of supply do what it has always done. In a moment we will see how simply that turn is made within, but first let the picture settle. Supply is natural to union. Dryness is only the feeling of being cut off. Now let us make the turn. Quietly, simply, just silently within yourself. Think of that word, I. Not the noisy me that carries yesterday's headlines. Not the name on your driver's license. Not the age, the report, the ledger of successes and failures. I. Declare it within yourself. I. And wait there a moment. Now, I don't mean, merely repeating a word. I mean feeling the stillness behind it. Feel that there is an aliveness present before the thought, an awareness that is not your history and not your future. That I is the inlet. That I is where the vine touches the branch. For some, this will be instantly familiar, like a home you had forgotten and suddenly recognized by its fragrance. For others, it will seem faint, a hush at the very edge of thought. For still others, it may feel like nothing at all the first time, only a pause. Do not be disturbed by any of that. The I we are turning toward is not a mood, not a sensation. It is the place of identity where the Master spoke. I and the Father are one. When you say I inside yourself and let attention rest there, you are not inflating a personal ego. You are acknowledging the point of union where the life of God is your very life. Now make the distinction clear, because upon it your freedom depends. The me is the collection. Opinions, fears, dates, faces, the body's aches, the bank account, the calendar. The me lives by comparing, hurrying, explaining, promising. But the spiritual I does not explain. It is. It is the awareness that witnesses the thoughts come and go. It is the quiet presence that was here before you named yourself and will be here when the names are set down. Blessings touch the I first, because only there is their union to receive. From there, as sap into twig, the good appears as changed thought, as relaxed nerve, as wise step, as health finding its form. So, let us practice again. Just silently within yourself, withdraw your hurried looking from the outer condition. Leave the bill, the quarrel, the symptom right where it is, and let your attention slide home to I. Be still and know. Not please give, but let me be available to what is already here. Not a reaching out, but a yielding in. If thoughts clatter, let them. The eye is not threatened by noise any more than the ocean is threatened by a gull's wing. Rest in the fact of presence. And notice this. As you abide even for a minute in that inner stillness, the sense of having to get fades, and with it the strain. You are not making anything happen. You are letting what is be what it is. This is the conscious union secret. Without it, even true words remain outside you, beautiful perhaps, but fruit left on another tree. With it, the same words become life, and the blessing that could not be inflicted is found already flowing through the place prepared, your inner eye. Now, if you open your Bible, not as to a book of religion, but as to a record of spiritual psychology, you will notice a pattern so simple that we have overlooked it. People came to the Master. They asked. They listened. They answered. For some, it was a cry from the roadside, "Jesus, thou Son of David, have mercy on me." For others, it was a quiet approach in a crowd, the woman who touched the hem and would have remained hidden. For still others, friends did the approaching, lowering a man through a roof. And then, mark it well, there is always the moment when he brings their consciousness into participation. What wilt thou that I should do unto thee? Do you believe that I am able to do this? Not to extract an oath, not to weigh worthiness, but to awaken the point of contact. Blessings cannot be inflicted. The question is not for information. It is for union. When they answered, "Yea, Lord," they did not earn anything by syllables. In that reply, they aligned. By that very response, they entered conscious union with the Christ consciousness present in that moment. According to your faith, be it unto you. The power was not a traveling spectacle. The power was and is the presence. The approach, the asking, the answering, these moved their attention from outer hope to inner receptivity. The healing was not a reward. It was the inevitable fruit of union, as sap moving where the branch is attached. Now translate this into the simplest terms for today. Asking is not pleading. Asking is alignment. It is the movement of consciousness toward its source. The way a branch turns not by motion, but by remaining attached and facing the life that feeds it. You approach when, in the very midst of trouble, you turn within to I. You ask when you say silently, "Father, I listen." You answer when you consent, "Yes, I accept that thou art the life of me. Be it unto me as thy presence already is." And then you listen. Often 1 minute of listening changes more than an hour of words. Because words about God are not God. Awareness of God is God appearing as your awareness. Do you see why prayer seems to grow powerful when it ceases to be request and becomes receptivity? The Master himself said, "I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works." That is the mechanism. The consciousness that approaches, that asks in this sense, that answers yea to the inner Christ, is the consciousness through which the Father does the works. And so it is even when you call a practitioner. You do not hire a power. You consciously ask for help, and by that asking you open yourself to the activity of Christ felt through their realization. The point of change is the opening, not the pushing. Therefore, let your practice be very gentle. In the night watch, when fear begins to dictate, approach, turn within. Ask, align. Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. Answer, consent. Yes, I am willing to be governed from within. Then be still. Watch how wisdom, judgment, love, peace, those divine vitalities rise without strain and take form as the right word, the right appointment, the lift in health, the unexpected provision. This is the gospel pattern. Grace appears effective when consciousness participates, approaches, asks, and unites. And if this is so, then the next question for us is purely practical. How shall we live so that this receptive union is natural to us, steady, without strain? We will have to clear away our false supports to see it, and then we will learn to abide. Now we must clear away what has quietly stood between you and your own receiving. And first, let me make the disclaimer very plain so that no one misunderstands our work. There is no organization here to join, no membership to hold, no human bond that can confer spiritual good. No one can join receptivity. No one can join God. The only bond we have with one another is a spiritual bond, and that forms not by signing, not by paying, not by pledging, but by your own inward discovery of the presence within your I. If tonight you should forget everything else, remember this. Receiving is an inward bond, not an outward affiliation. For some, the temptation is simple. Belong, and therefore feel safe. For others, it is subtler. Adopt the right label, study the right books, repeat the right sentence, and therefore suppose that the blessing must obey you. For still others, fear makes a bargain. Submit to rules and penalties, and perhaps God will be pleased. All of that is churchianity, not truth. Blessings cannot be inflicted, not by creeds, not by crowds, not by titles. You can attend every service in the city and remain untouched if the point of contact is not found within. You can wear a badge and still be afraid at midnight. You can memorize a catechism and yet have no peace. The outer can remind, it cannot transmit. Now, I am not at war with forms as reminders. I am at war with superstition. Rites exist as parables of an inner reality. What is baptism if not a shift of consciousness, dying to the sense of a self apart from God and rising to, I and the Father are one? What is communion if not abiding in presence, the bread and wine of life realized as the very substance and law of your being? What is circumcision if not the cutting away of dependence on externals, the severing of our idols, reputation, money, personality, so that the heart is uncovered to God? Paul said it, circumcision or uncircumcision, it all availeth nothing. A new creature, the inner newness, availeth. Do you see? Inner baptism, inner communion, inner circumcision. Otherwise, it is pageantry, and pageantry never healed the sick nor calmed a terrified mind at 2 a.m. And with this freedom comes responsibility. Since no institution can hold you faithful, you must hold yourself faithful. Nobody, can tell you which words are true for you in an hour of need. You yourself must measure everything within by its fruit. Measure by peace that passes understanding, not by excitement. Measure by demonstration, not by eloquence. Does the teaching become health, guidance, integrity, provision? Measure by love, by the softening of judgment, by the quiet authority that dissolves fear. If a teacher, a book, a group turns you outward, toward personalities and slogans, walk on. if it turns you inward, toward the I where union is realized, abide. Freedom is hard to win. It is harder to retain. The habit of leaning on props will return and promise you shortcuts. Do not sell your birthright for a mess of pottage. No badge, no rule, no penalty can guarantee what only conscious union can give. Therefore, let the outer fall to its proper place as reminder only, and take up your true work, which is simple and exact. Abide, listen, and receive. In a moment, we will see why even effort can become another prop, and how, instead of straining, you may yield into the grace that is already here. Now we must face the paradox that trips so many of us just as we begin to taste freedom. For some, the instinct is to press harder. More prayers, louder affirmations, longer hours, hoping that intensity will pry open heaven. For others, the instinct is to organize the mind like a drill sergeant. Timelines, conditions, demands, attempting to bully outcomes into place. And for still others, there is a nervous bargaining. If I hold perfectly still, if I don't think a wrong thought, if I keep this mantra going, surely the blessing must obey me. But hear this kindly. That very intensity can be the closing of the hand that cannot receive. The clenched fist may be strong, but it cannot hold water. The grasp shuts the inlet. Do not mistake this for indifference. There is a holy fidelity required of us, but fidelity is not frenzy. Fidelity is a quiet returning, again and again, to the inner I, regardless of weather, headlines, or symptoms. Striving is a nervous forcing of outcomes, born of the belief that you are apart from your good and must fetch it from a distance. Fidelity abides. Striving agitates. Fidelity remembers, I and the Father are one. Striving rehearses, I and my problem are two. The Master did not say, take more thought for your life. He said, take no thought. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Rest is not laziness. It is alignment with the government of God. Now let us be very honest about the promises of externals. Money promises you will never be afraid again, until a headline erases columns in a night. Romance promises you will never be lonely again, until two beautiful humans discover they cannot save each other. Success promises applause will fill the void, until the lights go out and the room is still. And, even spiritual achievement promises, retreat badges, hours logged, favorite words perfectly said, until the clock strikes 2 in the morning and your practiced sentences cannot breathe for you. No one ever attained lasting peace by acquiring a condition, a person, or a performance. Peace is not an acquisition. Peace is the presence realized, and the presence is realized by receptivity, not by strain. What then is true receptivity? It is relaxation into divine government. It is the yielding of the personal will to the will that is wisdom itself. It is letting the life of God be the life of your I, without coaching it, nudging it, or timing it. It is consenting to be God-governed and discovering what that means in lived fruit. Wisdom rising of itself, intelligence ordering details, virtue steadying impulses, vitality renewing nerves, guidance sketching the next step, love softening speech, peace dissolving fear, abundance appearing not as hoarded stuff, but as sufficiency, integrity, opportunity, protection. The whole range of divine vitalities flowing as naturally as sap through living wood. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, He doeth the works. Yield to that, and you will find the works done. Therefore, let the effort be this and only this. Return and relax. Return to I, relax into omnipresence. You cannot strain your way into receptivity. You yield into it. And if receptivity is a state rather than a stunt, then our care must turn to understanding what shuts it down, how fear, pride, and the subtle glitter of externals creep back in, and how to guard this new freedom without anxiety or superstition. We will take that up now, so that what has begun in quiet may be preserved in quiet. Now comes the sober part. Freedom is hard to win. It is much harder to retain. After a measure of awakening, after you have touched the inner I and felt the lift, the temptation to return to old dependencies comes twice as hard. For some, it is the old fear, dressed in a new headline, whispering, "Yes, that was lovely, but this is serious." For others, it is the familiar resentment returning with a polished argument. They must be corrected before I can have peace. For still others, it is the glitter of appearances, the bank figure rising or falling, the face in the mirror, the opinion of neighbors, promising authority it never had. The pull backward always comes promising realism. It is only the old prison with a fresh coat of paint. Lot's wife is the picture. She looked back, and the motion of life stopped. She became fixed, a pillar of salt, hard, briny with old tears, unable to move on. Looking back is not nostalgia for good times. It is a return to the belief that good is out there, out in people, out in events, out in rituals, out in yesterday's inspiration. Looking back is turning from I and the Father are one to I alone must get this done. It is a return to identity. I am the struggler. I am the offended. I am the sick. And in that glance, the inlet closes. Blessings cannot be inflicted across a turned back. They flow by union. They wither in divided attention. How then is receptivity closed? By mental argument, designing outcomes, rehearsing speeches, bargaining with time. By taking personal responsibility for divine work, lifting the whole world onto your shoulders as if, I can of mine own self do everything, and in that pride, exhausting the branch while ignoring the vine. By judgment of self or others, condemning, comparing, defending, until your consciousness is no longer a sanctuary but a courtroom, and a house divided against itself must fall. By fascination with appearances, staring at symptoms, screens, and statistics as if they were causes, bowing to effect while forgetting source. Each of these pulls the gaze outward. Each shuts the inlet by replacing awareness with activity. Therefore, set a guard over your gate, but not as a fanatic. No vow to a teacher, no badge, no party. When you find the principle that brings life, cling to it with the fidelity of marriage, not to a person, but to the inner contact itself. Give up all others. Give up argument. Give up morbid checking of results. Give up the luxury of resentment, and cleave to the I where union is realized. Make quiet rules for yourself, gentle and exact. When tempted to plan the miracle, be still and say within, Father, I listen. When tempted to inspect the seed, leave it in the soil and return to I. When tempted to judge, bless and release, for judgment divides and divided houses fall. When dazzled or terrified by appearances, close your eyes for a moment and remember, just silently, I and the Father are one. This is not grimness. This is freedom's protection. The guardrails are love for your own soul. They keep the channel open so the sap may move without your coaxing. With these in place, our next step is simple and beautifully practical. How to begin the day. How to meet a problem at noon. How to retire at night. How to abide, listen, and let the gift become demonstration. Good. Let us make it very simple and very livable. Begin the day before the world begins, with you. Before the hand reaches for the phone. Before the calendar opens. Sit quietly. 3, 5, 10 minutes if you can. Just silently within yourself, pause. Let the breath come and go without coaching. And turn to the inner I. Not a sentence to recite, but a recognition to enter. I and the Father are one. Acknowledge presence. Father, I listen. And then listen. No outlining, no planning the miracle. Let thoughts pass like birds crossing an open sky. If a fear tries to rush the platform, do not wrestle. Let it speak and pass. Your work is receptivity. Out of that listening will rise, of itself, the feel of peace, the sense of being held, the first faint rightness that needs no argument. That is union felt. Carry this into the day as brief returns. Between appointments, at a red light, before you answer a difficult message, give 10 seconds to come home. Pause. Breathe. Remember I. Acknowledge presence. Listen. Refuse the invitation to wrestle with appearances. Do not argue with the picture on the screen, the number on the page, the tone in a voice. Return to source. From that inner government, take the next step. Sometimes it will be to speak a soft word. Sometimes to say nothing at all. Sometimes to make the call. Sometimes to wait an hour. The branch bears fruit. It does not manufacture sap. At noon, give yourself another small altar of time. 2 minutes is enough if it is pure. Sit, turn, remember, listen. If the mind insists on a project plan, smile and let it go by. Take no thought. Consent to be God-governed. Then go on with your day, acting freely, but from the inner yes, rather than from pressure. In the late afternoon, when the body tires and the old anxieties try to collect their debts, return again, not to plead, but to abide. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, He doeth the works. Let that be the ballast. At night, before sleep, empty the day into God. Not by reliving it, not by correcting it mentally, but by placing it in the presence you have known. Thank you. Be in me the rest I cannot manufacture. Abide there until the shoulders drop and the breath loosens. Sleep in union. Now do not confuse this gentle rhythm with passivity. This is not hiding from life. This is taking life at its root. From union, you will find yourself unusually practical, precise, and kind. Demonstration follows as naturally as sap rising into fruit. Peace in the midst where panic used to govern. Guidance that orders decisions without strain. Relationships softening because judgment has lost its badge. Health restored as tension dissolves and life reorders function. Supply arriving not by clutching, but through right activity discovered and performed under inner direction. People will call it coincidence. You will know it as law. Grace meeting receptivity. Keep it free of superstition. No hour is holier than another. No chair has magic. No sentence binds God. The practice is to be lived quietly and consistently. Pause. Breathe. Remember I. Acknowledge presence. Listen. Act as led. That is all. Do it daily, and the gift will not remain a theory. It will become demonstration. Small at first, perhaps, like a new shoot, but certain, inevitable, and your own. And so let us draw the thread straight through. God is omnipresence, unfailing, uninterruptible, not turning on and off like a city light. The giving is constant. Blessings do not fail because heaven withholds. Blessings seem to fail because they cannot be inflicted. The mechanism is union, as natural and inevitable as sap in the vine and branch. Receptivity is the opening of that union in consciousness. Attention returning to the inner I, where I and the Father are one, is not a saying, but a state. And when that opening is found, demonstration follows of itself. Not fireworks, not superstition, but lived evidence. Peace where fear ruled, guidance where guesswork chattered, health where tension broke the rhythm, supply where clutching once starved the life. Doctrine without this becomes a philosophy of words. With union, the word becomes flesh in your experience. For some among you who are weary, let this be rest. You are not asked to lift the world tonight. You are asked to yield to the life that is already lifting you. For others who are thinkers and builders, let this be principle, precise, orderly, cause within, effect without. Source realized, outcomes arranged by wisdom deeper than strategy. For still others, disillusioned by institutions, let this be freedom. No badges, no memberships, no superstitions, yet not a freedom that wanders, but a freedom married to responsibility. Hold to the inner contact, measure truth by fruit, refuse the old props, and stand in God without fear. Just once more, quietly, without display, within yourself, say I. Not to stir a feeling, not to coax a vision, simply to recognize the place of contact. Rest there. Let the mind do nothing. Let the presence be what it is. In that unadorned I, you are not reaching for God. You are meeting God. The branch is not ordering sap. It is abiding in its life. Now, I see the clock has been moving much faster than I have. Oh, where did the time go? When the subject is real, time seems to forget itself. Before you return to telephones and doors and headlines, give yourself a few minutes. No argument, no explaining. Just sit in the quiet you have found. Let it seal. Then go, not to perform, but to live from the inward yes you have touched. Remember this, and it will steady you at midnight or at noon. At no moment are you outside the possibility of contact. Union is not earned. It is remembered. Nothing has to be forced. Conscious union restores the natural ability to receive what God is always giving. Therefore, abide. Listen. Let. The gift is constant. The receiver is the variable. And you, now, have the key.